Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.
Eddie Rispone kind of came from nowhere.
Pearson Cross analyzes the governor's race.
I think we've seen what the points of attack are going to be.
The strategy expected for the runoff race.
If you're not accessible and transparent, you'll never know, what the people need.
He's 18 and has big plans for a parish council.
Hi everyone, I'm Natasha Williams.
And I'm Andre Moreau. Much more on those top stories in a moment on this week's edition of SWI. But first, let's look at other news making headlines across Louisiana. This video from a phone shows the moment the under-construction Hard Rock Hotel in New Orleans collapsed. Officials have abandoned hope for survivors, with the apparent death toll now at 3. There were more than a dozen injuries. Investigators are also looking at video posted on social media claiming to show structural problems inside the hotel construction site 2 days before its deadly collapse.
We use what we call, technical specialists in any type of operation, whether it's a collapse underground or an explosion. Every single thing that we do, we got to bring when it's not something that we have the expertise in. We bring in the people that do that, and we have, as I said, we have the finest experts, we believe, in town. They have tons of experience with these type of incidents, and we have not come to a conclusion as to how we're going to mitigate this situation. So it does remain a very dangerous building.
A University of Alabama student is behind bars after calling in a bomb threat to Tiger Stadium in hopes of halting the LSU-Florida football game. 19-year-old freshman Connor Bruce Kroll was arrested in Tuscaloosa by school police. Investigators were able to trace the source of the call after receiving the threat. Police say Kroll confessed to making the bomb threat, saying he wanted to stop the game because his friend was on the verge of losing a large bet. LSU gave no comment pending their investigation. It's unclear what charge or charges Kroll will face, but Louisiana's terrorizing law can lead to fines up to $15,000 and or imprisonment up to 15 years. Big honor for the state's Economic Development Small Business Team, earning the Gold Award for Excellence for delivering the world's best programs from the International Economic Development Council. Programs like the Veterans First Business Initiative and innovative training for small and emerging businesses. During 2018, LED Small Business Services programs worked with more than 11,000 businesses and entrepreneurs. A sentencing hearing is postponed for the former LSU student convicted in the hazing death of a Phi Delta Theta fraternity pledge. 21-year-old Matthew Nakan was scheduled to be sentenced this week for negligent homicide in the death of 18-year-old Max Groover in 2017. The court granted a continuance because one of Nakan's relatives was hospitalized with a serious illness. November 20th is the new sentencing date. He faces up to 5 years in prison. A judge says Shreveport has been overcharging residential water and sewer customers for years. The ruling this week without a full trial from Caddo Parish Judge Michael Pittman. Lawyers say about 60,000 customers are affected and damages are estimated at $24 to $25 million. This is since 2007. Notices will be going out to all those affected. And a vote recount has pushed Franklin Foyle out of a second-place tie with Steve Carter and into a runoff for a seat in the state Senate. Both those guys are Republicans.
Foyle will face Democrat Beverly Brooks Thompson in the November 16th runoff, the Baton Rouge-based seat, of course. Now, the recount gave Foyle a 4-vote edge over Carter. The Secretary of State's office says a problem with the scanning of absentee ballots forced the recount. On November 16th, the state of Louisiana could elect a new governor. Eddie Rispone, a Baton Rouge businessman and self-proclaimed outsider, could unseat the Deep South's only Democratic governor, John Bel Edwards. At this week's Baton Rouge Press Club, University of Louisiana Lafayette's political expert Pearson Cross walked us through the recent election outcomes and how he believes it came to be.
I'm Eddie Rispone.
Eddie Rispone, the Republican businessman, self-proclaimed outsider and political novice, surprised many on election night, including some political experts.
I've been asking myself the question, what is, in fact, the reason for Mr. Rispone's success? And the answer is fairly straightforward and simple.
Pearson Cross, political commentator, radio talk show host, and professor of government and political science at the University of Louisiana Lafayette, was the guest speaker at the Baton Rouge Press Club on Monday.
When he first started running his ads, I thought, and I admit that I'm wrong, I thought, this is crazy. He's just up there saying, look, I'm Eddie, and I'm playing with my grandkids, and I can throw a football. Or, I'm Eddie Rispone, and I really like Trump. I like him a whole lot. Stand by him. I've always stood by him. I think he's just what we need. I want to be just like, and I thought, this is a completely contentless message, and I thought, this is crazy. No one will ever support that. So what I didn't get was that this message is like a clarion call. It's clear. It basically reaches through. It's not complicated. It's like, I am a businessman. I like Trump. You like Trump. Support me. There's a certain genius in that.
Cross says he believes Rispone's plain speak and identity politics are voters prioritizing concerns most relevant to their race, religion, or culture is the reason the newcomer was able to beat Republican challenger Congressman Ralph Abraham and force a runoff against the incumbent Democratic governor, John Bel Edwards.
There's a culture of distaste for politicians in government, particularly among whites in rural areas, that believe government is the enemy, that those who are working in government can't be trusted, that elites are trying to undermine American values, that limiting government's power, regulation, and intrusion in daily life is in fact the answer to our governmental problems.
He says this may not be how all Republicans think, but it is the mindset of a new group of GOPs who support President Trump at all cost.
Trump is a person who raises that particular kind of gestalt, a person from outside government who's going to make it right, who's going to sock it to the liberal elites. So what has this got to do with Eddie Rispone? Well, Eddie Rispone is essentially the Trump surrogate in Louisiana. He was the person who activated white voters who were fed up with liberal government.
He says a close look at the voting statistics spell it out very clearly.
In the 2015 gubernatorial primary, there were 1,114,000 votes. That was a 39% turnout. This year it was 45% turnout, 1.343 million voters. What's the difference? Well, about 200,000 white, mostly white rural voters turned out.
Cross says the reason many of those voters across Louisiana's 64 parishes came out and threw their support behind the Republicans is because of the commander-in-chief and his politics.
Trump Jr., Pence, impeachment, Nancy Pelosi, and so on. So there's a real sense there that somehow, because of Rispone's connecting his campaign with Donald Trump's and Donald Trump's style, and then having the president, his son, and his surrogates come to Louisiana, there's a real connection to Donald Trump made in this campaign.
He says Louisiana politics have become nationalized.
It used to be that Louisiana was really sui generis, and I regret to say that that time is very fading very fast. I think we're less and less sui generis. I think, in fact, we now, well, except to the extent that our national politics extend all the way down into local races.
The political expert says other Louisiana candidates are also openly proclaiming their support of the president in hopes of getting votes.
I was at a forum where one of the candidates for Lafayette mayor-president, who, by the way, led in the runoff and now is going into a runoff for mayor-president, specifically said that people should support him because he supported Donald Trump.
Cross says fewer African Americans voting during the primary also hurt John Bel Edwards.
African American voters were down. Estimates are at 26.5% of the total voting population. As you may know about Louisiana, if you are African Americans can make up of the total electorate. They can make up on any voting day somewhere between 25 and 30% of the total electorate. If African Americans come out towards the 30%, then it's good for Democratic candidates. If they come out towards the 25% or even lower, it's bad for Democratic candidates. So in this case, they came out at 26.5%. If they'd come out at 29%, 29.5%, that'd be an additional 65,000 voters. That gets John Bel Edwards very close to getting 50% of the total vote.
Cross says the Rispone campaign strategy, although different, was very effective.
He didn't go out. He got home at 9 o'clock most nights. He slept in his own bed. He didn't make very many campaign barnstorming things. He didn't walk in too many parades. He didn't do too many of those things. He just spent a whole lot of money, and he put on a blitzkrieg of social media and television advertisements. He capitalized on the anti-government feeling.
He said the bottom line is expect Republicans and their leader, Donald Trump, to camp out in the Bayou State for the next 5 weeks as they try to gain what they feel is a very important governor's seat.
I think we're going to see money that hasn't flown in here previously coming in. I think we're probably going to see Trump surrogates a couple of times, maybe Trump himself. I think this is really going to be a major push, and I think with redistricting coming up, it's going to be really, really important to have for Republicans to have a Republican governor. We know that Bobby Jindal played an enormous role in the last redistricting in terms of shaping the districts and making sure that Republicans retain majority in what is now 5 of those districts.
LPB has scheduled a debate on October 30th between Mr. Rispone and Governor John Bel Edwards. The governor has confirmed his participation, but so far, Mr. Rispone has not.
Now we're going to hear a reaction from those who closely cover politics from their newspapers and nonprofits, reaction to the primary election and what they think needs to happen for either candidate to secure the job of governor. Welcome to Melinda Deslatte from the Associated Press, Greg Hilburn, USA Today Network, and from Council for Better Louisiana, Barry Erwin. What needs to happen going forward for this to be a race that get some of the issues out, perhaps, instead of rhetoric? Is that an impossible question?
That's a good question. It is. It's pretty tough. I mean, we've had weeks and months of people trying to do just that, and sometimes the less specific you are, the less that you put yourself in danger of going out on a limb and getting caught on something that somebody's going to use against you. So the reaction is just to say nothing.
I think what you're going to see from Eddie Rispone is a lot of the same, which is he has largely avoided talking about state-specific issues. He hasn't really said what he wants to do specifically if he gets to office. I mean, there have been some generalities about tax reform, lowering taxes, constitutional convention, but when you get into specificity about what any of those things would entail, he doesn't like to talk about that. So instead he talks about national issues that don't really have anything to do with what the governor's scope in office really is, whereas John Bel Edwards has tried to focus on state-specific issues, and he tried to make the race a referendum on his performance in the first 4 years. I think he's going to have to shift that a little bit and explain to voters perhaps why they shouldn't want to vote for Mr. Rispone if he's going to be successful, and he maybe also needs to reintroduce himself to voters and remind them of his own personal background, which is what he was successful at. When he outlined that background previously, it helped him in 2015 be successful with voters the first time. So I think from Eddie Rispone's point of view, he's probably going to stay where he is, and he sees a successful line of campaigning that's worked for him so far, and I think you're going to see the John Bel Edwards campaign maybe reconfigure a little bit what they're doing.
The Edwards campaign released the first post-primary TV spot.
4 years ago, you elected me to pull Louisiana out of the ditch. And by working with Republicans and Democrats, we turned a $2 billion deficit into a surplus, gave teachers a pay raise, and expanded health care for working families. Now, we have a choice to make. Let Eddie Rispone drag us back to the deficits and cuts to health care and education of Bobby Jindal, or continue moving forward and investing in our future. That is what this election is about, and that's why I'm asking for your vote.
Eddie Rispone's Facebook page featured this.
Louisiana cannot take 4 more years of a liberal Democrat governor raising your taxes, killing your jobs, attacking your industries. You've got to vote John Bel Edwards out.
What will we see moving forward?
I think certainly Governor Edwards is going to ramp up his attacks on his TV ads. He didn't run any attack ads from his personal campaign, although certainly the PAC supporting him ran attack ads against his opponent. But I think in order to try to find that other 3%, which is going to be tough to find, he's going to have to go on the attack against Mr. Rispone. I think what you have seen is the ever deepening red Republican state that Louisiana is, because there were some independent polls before the primary election that showed that the governor had a 55-56% approval rating, yet many of those people still voted Republican that obviously approved of his job rating. That's how I think that shows how deeply red the state has become.
So party line voting is what we're seeing.
And if Governor Edwards wants to win another term, he has to figure out how to get some of those people to cross party lines, and that just seems like that's a harder and harder task to do with national politics being so omnipresent in people's thinking now.
What might the percentage be in the voting for this runoff? Well,
typically or historically, it's usually less than what you see in the primary. And again, when you look across the map around the state, we had a lot of legislative races in virtually every part of the state. Now we have a lot of those that have been decided. So that's taken a lot of the emphasis out of people getting out to vote, because a lot of that's driven by, those local races. Sure. So typically what you see is somewhat smaller, and that makes the challenge even greater, I think, in some ways for the governor, because he's got to find a way to get the folks that are supporting him to make sure they're going to the polls. They can bring in the president or some of his surrogates and stir that base up pretty easily, but the governor's got a little bit more of a challenge in doing that.
Does there feel like there's momentum, though, maybe more for Rispone than there would be for Governor Edwards at this point?
I think so. Naturally, when there was 52% of voters voted Republican, so that means the governor. Add those up. That means the governor's going to have to. It won't be the same number of turnout and all that, but still, the governor has to find some crossover, and it's going to be hard to do, but he still expresses confidence, and he is tantalizingly close to 50 plus 1, but it's a long way away, even though it seems very close.
Well, absolutely, and if you were an incumbent and 53% of the people who voted didn't vote for you, you would have to be worried, because that means they know what commodity they have with you, and they chose someone else. Right. So you have to find a way, and obviously turnout will change in this next runoff election, and things, the people who show up might be totally different, but you have to give them a message that makes people want to return back to you, and that's a little bit harder to do if they've already chosen somebody else instead of you.
And you do see the reaction that even the president's visit on a Friday night before the race did to energize some people to get out and vote, and that sort of shows you where Louisiana really is.
I think the president will be back. Yesterday may have been the first day that he hadn't at least tweeted or been here or sent somebody here in about 10 days, starting with the vice president and Kenner, and so I don't see any reason why he wouldn't return and try to get his person over the top.
President Trump is looking for things he can declare victory on, and so why would he give up if he could flip this state and be able to declare victory in helping a Republican candidate win?
I'm sure he feels confident.
And he certainly found a pretty friendly crowd here the last time.
Yeah, so. Sure did. All right, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you.
Now a different kind of political story. He's 18, he's a freshman at Southern, and he was a runaway choice for a seat on the Iberville Parish Council. And keep in mind, Raheem Pierce graduated from Plaquemine High School 5 months ago. Raheem, when did you decide you were going to run for this parish council seat?
About 2 years ago.
2 years ago?
Yes.
So there's some planning involved here.
Yes, sir.
What made the actual decision to do it?
Well, my passion for serving the people is what made me do it. So.
Your passion for serving the people. Well, that sounds like something your grandmother has said. She has said that you were born to do certain things. It is your journey.
Yes.
Respond to that.
I know. It's like whatever I put my mind to do, it's going to get done. So I decided to run for office, and I qualified, and October 12th, this past Saturday, I was elected with 60% of the votes.
60% of the vote?
Yes.
That's a big win.
Yes, sir.
Right? What are some of the other things you set your mind to do and that you've done?
I graduated high school.
Graduated high school.
Yeah, I did what I had to do to graduate high school.
You're now at Southern?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I've set my mind to graduate college in, 2023.
And what do you plan to do when you grow up, when you graduate from Southern?
Well, I wish to be a practice attorney in Louisiana, and maybe run for judge in the future.
Well, according to your resume, there's a lot of things you can do. You play the organ at church.
Yes, sir.
How did you learn how to do that?
I don't know. I play by ear, so I didn't take any lessons.
Wow.
It just comes to me.
All right, you've done neighborhood cleanups,
yes,
fed the homeless, volunteer firefighter in
sir.
Plaquemine. Have you ever been called out on a fire?
Twice. 2 or 3 times since I've been working with them.
Okay. You joined the Cajun Navy.
Yes, sir.
In 2016?
Yes, sir.
And what was involved with that?
I dispatched boats, to the people in need. And it was crazy, like, they didn't know my age until we all met up in Lake Charles, and they were all surprised.
And wait, how old were you then?
15.
You're 15?
Yes.
All right, so they thought you were...
Yeah, they thought I was...
You played older.
Grown, yeah.
You were older than that.
Yes, sir.
Now, you work for a family business right now, too,
yes, sir.
Right? Tell me about that.
It's a fun experience. I enjoy meeting the customers and, helping the customers as well.
You guys have a sandwich shop, is that right?
It's like a snack shop.
Snack shop, okay, all right. In Plaquemine?
Yes, sir.
Would you ever want to run a business yourself?
Probably not.
Probably not?
No.
All right, but you're getting experience doing it right now.
Yeah, but I'm getting experience just in case, so.
All right, so next stop for you that is going to catch most people's attention, besides you going to your classes and stuff, will be on the Iberville Parish Council.
Yes.
What do you want to see done better in Plaquemine and Iberville?
I want to improve the accessibility and, the lack of transparency that we receive in our community. And like I always say, if you're not accessible and transparent, you'll never know, what the people need or want. So.
And that's pretty much you ran on to win.
Yes.
All right.
Accessibility and transparency.
Raheem, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Raheem Pierce, we're going to keep our eyes on this young man.
Yeah, looks like a
He's
phenomenal
something else,
guy.
huh?
Yeah.
Really incredible.
Absolutely.
Well, there's a tentative truce in the tariff war between the U.S. and China. President Trump and Chinese officials came to a verbal agreement a week ago. White House says China will buy more products from American farmers, and the U.S. will suspend a tariff increase on Chinese goods.
The talks are the latest in the trade war that began over a year ago. How the conflict is affecting Louisiana is the topic of this month's Louisiana Public Square. LPB traveled to Alexandria to explore the tariff ramifications to farmers and the energy sector, as well as manufacturers in the state.
AFCO is negatively impacted by Section 301 tariffs, particularly by our importing competitors. Those competitors import the finished good that we manufacture. And as a finished good, it is not subject to the Section 301 tariffs, where the component parts that we import to put into those finished goods and the aluminum that we import that is subject to the Section 232 tariffs, we have to pay all of those tariffs on top of whatever our cost is for that product. Our importing competitors don't have that burden.
Tariff Tensions airs on Wednesday at 7 p.m. on LPB and in New Orleans on WLAE. For more information, visit lpb.org/public square.
This week, a Cuban asylum seeker at the Richwood Correctional Center near Moreau was found dead, an apparent suicide. Richwood is one of almost a dozen detention centers in the state that Immigration and Customs, ICE, is using to detain immigrants, thousands being held in Louisiana.
The man found dead was 43-year-old Royland Hernandez Diaz. He had been in custody for 148 days. His death has sparked cries for reform of the U.S. immigration detention system by advocates who believe America should not be in the business of holding those who do not pose a threat to the public.
This weekend, PBS NewsHour Weekend is putting the spotlight on ICE facilities. Special correspondent Joanne Jennings previews how the rapid expansion benefits local jails and prisons.
In 2017, Louisiana enacted prison reforms that led to a dramatic decrease in the number of state prisoners behind bars. Now, many of the cells are being used by ICE. The agency pays the Jackson Parish Sheriff's Department $74 a day for each migrant detainee. That's about 3 times what the state pays to house someone convicted of a crime. Though the $74 does cover some added ICE requirements, like translators and additional health care providers, it's been a windfall here.
The per diem comes to the sheriff's office, and I turn around and cut LaSalle Management a check. Then LaSalle Management pays me. They reimburse me for all the benefits, for all the salaries of all these employees, plus I make some money off of fees and such.
And when you say you make money, that you're able to finance your law enforcement operation through this, or what do you mean?
I have about a $5 million budget at my sheriff's office, and this year we will probably profit $750,000 from the jail.
You can watch those reports from Joanne Jennings' PBS NewsHour Weekend, Saturday and Sunday at 5 o'clock here on LPB.
And everyone, that's our show for this week. Remember, you can watch anything LPB anytime, wherever you are, with our brand new app.
That's right. Download it for free from your app store. The upgraded version features news, public affairs, documentaries, how-tos, and many more programs. And please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
For all of us here at Louisiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Andre Moreau.
And I'm Natasha Williams. Thanks for watching.
Until next time, that's the state we're in.
Support comes from
Entergy provides much more than power. We support science and engineering at local schools to build a brighter path to better jobs and help prepare the next generation. Because together, we power life. Entergy.
Additional support provided by the Fred B. and Ruth B. Ziegler Foundation and the Ziegler Art Museum located in Jennings City Hall. The museum focuses on emerging Louisiana artists and is an historical and cultural center for Southwest Louisiana. And the Foundation for Excellence in Louisiana Public Broadcasting, with support from viewers like you.